Fox Sports Radio after me. I'm looking at your sheet here. Contributor The Athletic. Well, look at that. You can write now. Guy can do everything. Handle the ball.
Good editors.
If you could have hit jumpers.
I'm doing play-by-play this weekend for the NFL on Compass Radio. Me and Brian Baldinger, Bengals, Saints.
You're doing the play-by-play?
Uh-huh.
That's good. Good for
I'm
you.
A little nervous.
I formation, backs divide, man to the right, slot in motion. I'm just making crap up.
Yes, that's about it.
Okay.
Breeze, Michael Thomas, touchdown, Saints.
Yeah.
I just got to remember who's who day and who's who dat, because one's who day and one's who dat. I got to write it down like on my hands for both for that game.
Okay, I said to start the show, listen, if you get 2 weeks to prepare for the anniversary with your wife, you got to do better than a card. I'm watching two teams off buys. One team situationally was great. Mariota was great in the red zone, great in third down. Cowboys, with a veteran 9-year coach, looked like they were playing on 3 days.
Well, they also had a new offensive line coach, right? Where we're going to fix our offensive line, which wasn't great. They're not getting great play from the tight end position. But, look, we're kind of burying the lead here. Jerry Jones saying that Dak Prescott's going to get an extension. Why? What has he done in the last year and a half to show that he is a franchise quarterback capable of elevating this team? And I'm not saying that Dak Prescott is the sole issue with the team, okay? But a franchise caliber quarterback can elevate a team that has holes. He has not. He plays well based upon who's around him. And so you keep throwing money at the problem with Amari Cooper. It made it marginally better to where he had a couple of catches, but one touchdown catch, and he forces the interception in the red zone. I think everybody takes shots at Jerry Jones for his inability to part ways with Dez Bryant and some of his other personnel decisions and some of the things that he said about, the protests and about the NFL. But Jerry Jones wanted Tony Romo to come back off that injury and be their quarterback because he knew Tony Romo was the better quarterback. Tony Romo's still the better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I think the Cowboys have a problem, and he's under or behind center, and they're going to keep throwing money at that problem and still not fix it. I just don't think Dak's good enough to elevate this team.
No, I said this. I watched him in college at Mississippi State, and I said he's a better version of Tebow. You can't trust him in the NFL to make those seam route throws, and he just can't do it. But he's like Tebow. He's athletic. He's big. He's sturdy. There's something about him. The program he just kind of carried the program. But in the end, I told Joy this. Every year there's something in sports that happens, and I'm a data guy and I can't explain it. Miracle on Ice makes no sense. You can't explain that. College kids beating the Russians.
Yes.
Dak's first year in the league, it was a perfect storm. O-line was the best, totally healthy. Nobody had film on him. Their schedule that year was not a first-place schedule.
Correct. Schedule was the last-place schedule. Look, how about this as a statement? I feel like Rob Parker sitting in this chair, but I would go on hot take on you. I would rather be the Raiders than the Cowboys. The Raiders are bad, know they're bad, have 5 first-round picks and $79 million in cap space in the upcoming year. The Raiders in 2 years, if they don't completely screw up the draft, will be in better shape than the Cowboys. Now, look, maybe they keep Derek Carr, maybe they don't keep Derek Carr. If they don't, $7.5 million in dead cap space, and you got to go find a quarterback. But if they keep Derek Carr and decide one more year, they can put a whole lot of young talent around him, and I think they'll be on an upward trajectory. Whereas the Cowboys, they're stuck in that where the Knicks have been for, 20 years until the last couple of years, where they're okay. And I think they were kidding themselves based upon the 13 wins 2 years ago. Last year they had some issues with Dez Bryant aging, Jason Witten aging. But the big issue is that Dak Prescott hasn't gotten progressively better. Is their offense kind of lame and stale and in need of some refresher? Absolutely. But what has Dak Prescott done over the past year and a half to prove that he's a guy that can take the Cowboys back to the playoffs?
I mean, we could say it's all coaching, but when I watched Mariota last night against Dak, because I know Mariota's slightly better, but not a ton. But in that game last night, there was a sizable gap between Mariota and Dak Prescott. Like a sizable gap.
And I love the fact that you pointed out that Malcolm Thomas is a terrible signing for the Tennessee Titans. And Malcolm Butler. I said Malcolm Thomas. Sorry, Malcolm Butler is because I remember sitting in this chair and you were telling me that Belichick would lost the locker room, that Belichick is, that guys are turning on him. Yeah. And if you remember what Belichick said at the season opening press conference, people were peppering him, asking him questions about why Malcolm Butler didn't play. And all he said was, look, we'll talk about this year and this year's players. And my translation now, midway through the season, is he wasn't going to say it. He was going to prove it. And Nate Solder hasn't been worth the money he was paid in New York.
No, he hasn't.
And Malcolm Butler hasn't been worth the money he was paid in Tennessee. And meanwhile, the Patriots are probably not the favorite to come out of the AFC. But if you're not going to pick them, you're going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs, who the Patriots beat earlier this season.
Right.
And so he has proven it with this. I can't tell you why he didn't play. I can show you why he didn't play. And Belichick's methods, though they may not sit well with everybody, seem to work. And almost Everett, with the exception of one kicker. They have one kicker and maybe Chandler Jones to show for guys that have left New England and achieved any level of success.
Hey, by the way, it was Sunday. I had so much fun. So I watched Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson, and we both know the Chargers front office guys. It's a great roster. They're great people. It's a rough sled going San Diego to L.A., being the second dog in town, but they've built an incredible roster. Then I got to watch Breeze and Goff, and that was a showcase. Those teams are great. And then I watched Brady and Rodgers. And even last night was fun if you're a Titans fan. But when you're watching, I haven't heard your take on this on Brady and Rodgers, And I think, they're obviously Tom's on the back nine, but I really feel with Aaron when I watch Aaron. Aaron is not healthy. Aaron is not happy. Aaron is frustrated. Once again, he got up twice in that game, and he's grabbing a wrist. It's when you watch him play, Aaron, and he's never going to return one of my calls. It's not right. The McCarthy thing. Here's
where that's where you're getting at, and you've been right on this for probably 2 years. Is that he and McCarthy? And I don't know if I'm airing laundry here that I shouldn't, but this is you and Kim, your ex-wife, right? Yeah. Kim's awesome. Okay,
I am awesome too.
That doesn't. And Mike McCarthy is going to get another job, just like Kim found another husband.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But at some point, some relationships aren't meant to last forever.
Yes.
They're just not. And every time you cut away to a shot to Aaron Rodgers, he looks ticked off
and miserable.
And every time you cut away to a shot to Mike McCarthy with that play card, he looks miserable.
It doesn't work.
Their offense is stale and average. He's a guy who and this is where he's like you, where he needs to be intellectually stimulated. I feel like I'm that way. Like one of the reasons that I'm doing a college basketball color
stuff,
right? Is I gotta be challenged. I can't just drive the same way to work and do the same thing for 20 years. I'm not that guy.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers is not that guy, and I think he's grown tired of it. But I do think with the right offensive mentor, the right guy to freshen some stuff up. They already changed the front office.
Yeah.
So I think times are changing in Green Bay. I'm going to disagree with your take that's coming, which is you think Aaron Rodgers isn't long for this league.
I don't. Well, I'll talk about that later. But I do believe we are in and I think this stuff matters. Years ago, I would watch Jay Cutler on the sideline, and he would just go stand by himself. And I was like, dude, when you're a quarterback in the league, you go to a bench, you bring over your slot receiver and your coordinator, you look at stuff. Brady's always surrounded by peeps, right? And
look here.
Cutler was literally on an island by himself.
I don't know if you know this. Jay Cutler had to be removed from the locker room. He did not dress in the locker room at the end of the run in Chicago because his teammates hated him.
So all I'm saying with Rodgers,
hated him. But that's not the case with Rodgers.
No. But to your point, when I see Rodgers and McCarthy, it's frosty. You can see it.
It's also Rodgers is struggling with younger, newer wide receivers. Okay, whereas what New England's done is they're bringing in veterans. And they cycled through a whole bunch of guys in the preseason trying to figure out what fit. And they went out and finally got Josh Gordon. And they ultimately found a way to kind of make that fit because they needed his talent. And they got Julian Edelman and they got Chris Hogan. They got converted guys that are really, really bright, but they're also veterans. So they know how to approach the thing. I think, the idea of surrounding Aaron Rodgers with younger guys is a great idea in theory, but in practice, it's hard because he's 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. And they're kind of struggling to keep up. And then the offense doesn't stimulate him offensively. That's a marriage that won't last after this season. But I think if they hire the right guy, and I'll throw out a name of a guy who's killing it as offensive coordinator that is getting no credit at all this year. Steve Sarkisian. Did you watch the Falcons just take apart the Redskins?
No. Atlanta's offense this year is fantastic.
The reason their defense stinks is they're mired with injuries. Right. They have had devastating injuries. Julio Jones just scored his first touchdown of the year, and Matt Ryan's playing at an MVP level. Now, I don't know if you can hire Sark considering how it ended at USC and all of his baggage, but a new set of ideas, something fresh to challenge Aaron Rodgers, I do think will recharge him. He signed a long-term contract thinking, I still want to compete for a couple more Super Bowls.
Got about a minute and a half left. Everybody's pointing fingers with the Lakers. Why isn't LeBron better?
It's a great question. I don't think it's necessarily about being better. Just give me one game where you feel like, oh, yeah, LeBron's the best player in the league. I haven't seen it. The energy's not there defensively. There was a play 2 nights ago. I know you pointed out they've beaten the bad teams and lost to the good teams, but they were eviscerated by the Toronto Raptors without Kawhi Leonard.
42-10 at home.
Did not take off the sweats. He did not play. They're down 12 to start in the first quarter, and they come out of a timeout. He throws a behind-the-back pass into the stands for no reason at all and shows no facial affect. So if you want to tell me that LeBron's trying to find out what guys he can ultimately go to war with, okay, Josh Hart appears up to the challenge. I don't know if he's good enough, but he's up to the challenge. I still don't, Lonzo hasn't done anything since he's been the starting point guard. Rondo's been a disappointment. Ingram hasn't been good enough. But what about LeBron James? Just take over a game and show us how dominant you are. There's something amiss there. He can't play the backup center, something I thought he could do. That's why they're signing Tyson Chandler. They're a band of misfit toys kind of thrown together. They don't have the shooting, but more than anything, just take over, be selfish, show us why you're LeBron James. There's something there that's missing from LeBron, and I can't explain it. I wish you could.
No, I told you the other day on your show yesterday, I said I watched a game earlier this year, and there were moments I didn't know if he was on the floor.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that in Cleveland or Miami. Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio after me.